شكرا جزيلا لحضراتكم. دكتور بلال, we are 6 minutes late. I don't want to take much of your session time. I thank you very much, my dear colleague, Dr. Bilal Saeed from Soft Team France, and the colleagues in his session. The floor is yours, Dr. Bilal, for a very interesting session that will address not only the facts about open educational resources, but how to change our practices with open educational resources. The floor is yours, Dr. Bilal.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, my dear colleague and a friend, Professor Ghada Al-Khayyat from Alexandria University, a city that I would love to visit again to see colleagues and friends in there, and particularly the learning lab and the ADIP Center at the university, which is one of the pedagogical pillars of the academic activity at the university and all its institutions. I'm honored and pleased to be given this chance by my dear friend Ghada to be part of this academic venue about pedagogical innovation and particularly open educational resources, which is a topic of high interest at this moment in particular, and which is valuable for all stakeholders in education, professors, learners, and institutions. And as my colleague Ghada said, it's not about the openness of the contents and the resources themselves, but it's also about the openness of the practices, which is a very important point, and that we will see in the topics today. And it's also something that touches the strategic decisions and policies, not at the institution level, but in the whole region, I would say, in the world, for more inclusive involvement of everyone in teaching. So to not be so long, let me welcome the first speaker for today. So we will have a three valuable presentations by my colleagues, Haifa Belhaj, assistant professor from Qatar University, my dear colleague and a friend, Lilia Schneity from ISITCOM and Susi University in Tunisia, from Dr. Fauzi Barud from NDU University in Lebanon. So let's start with the first talk about pedagogical innovation through open educational practices. It will be delivered by Dr. Haifa Belhaj. As I said, she is an assistant professor in telecommunication and instructional design and e-learning specialist. She is currently a senior instructional designer at Qatar University. She obtained her PhD in telecommunication from National Engineering School of Tunis, and then in instructional design and technology and educational technology from the University of Cergy in Paris. The floor is yours, Dr. Haifa, so please.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Dr. Ghada, for the invitation. Assalamu alaikum, assalamu ala jamia. I'm happy to be with you today to speak about open educational practices, especially how can we innovate through open educational practices. So my presentation today contains, we will try to answer together 3 questions. First, why today is it necessary to innovate? Then, what are open educational practices exactly? And then how can we innovate? Finally, how can we innovate through open educational practices? So let's start by the first question. Why today is it necessary to innovate for an educator or for an instructor? As you know, it is very important in order to answer this question, it is important to know more about our targeted public. Who is our customers? In fact, as you know, our students today are from the generation Z. This generation has many characteristics which are important for an instructor to know, and you find many research about this generation. So the common characteristics aware. They are tech savvy, so we know that this generation is very comfortable with using technology. They are also collaborative. They are more comfortable in collaboration than the previous generation. They don't have any problem to share their ideas, their lives, their stories, etc. And also for many researchers, they said that many of them want to try something different. They are impressed and inspired by someone who did something differently. They like creativity and innovation. So I think, dear colleagues, it's not a choice. It's very important to innovate to satisfy the needs of this generation, to innovate to speak their language. Their language is the digital tools, of course. We have to use the digital tools and digital services and resources, etc. for them. Also, we have to help them to collaborate in a more efficient way, and to make them more motivated and to capture their attention. It is very important to propose to them some collaborative activities. And also, let's be creative in our teaching. Let's be different in order also to attract their attention and in order to inspire our students. This is the first reason. Second, why to innovate? Sometimes really it's not a choice. As you know, we found ourselves in some situations where we have to do some things differently, as is the case of the famous coronavirus. So it was not a choice for us to shift from the face-to-face teaching to the online teaching to the e-learning. So sometimes the question of innovation, it is not a choice, and it's a question of survive really. We have to do things differently. We have to teach differently. We have to try new practices in order to survive and in order to continue doing our job. So among these practices, what are exactly? Let's start by the practices that you tried during the pandemic. Many of you start urgently recording videos. You are looking for the easiest tools, the appropriate tools that help you to record your videos. You use the digital tools to prepare your course content. You use the digital tools to share the content. We use it all of us, the learning management system, the collaboration and communication platform. So all of this was innovative practices for the majority of us. I know that many of you has already an idea about e-learning and tried these tools, but for a majority, it's for the first time. Another part of the instructors don't have the time needed to record the videos, and they find the solution in internet. And alhamdulillah, and hopefully there was open or free access videos. There was also open or free access resources. So in general, we can say that openness saves many instructors during the pandemic. The question now is about these resources. I think now that many of you, after the different presentations, now that you what you use it are already open educational resources, and some of your practices were in reality open educational practices. Now I think after these the different presentation, you know that it is you can make the difference between free access resources or video which are protected by copyrights, as already presented by Dr. Benhenda, and other resources are open educational resources. So I'm sure that you use the open educational resources maybe without knowing this, and this is the occasion today to know more about them. I will define again another time the open educational resources, sorry, but repetition I think is one of the art of pedagogy, so I will try to be fast and to identify OER, what is open educational resources, before going to the open educational practices. So OER, as already presented by my colleagues, are not only free access resources, but what is more important is that these resources should be in the public domain or shared under an open license. What is an open license? An open license allows to us to use these resources, to modify these resources and mix them with another content, and also to share them again, to share these resources again. This is what it is the meaning of the open license. Among the most famous licenses that we can use, the open licenses, are the Creative Commons licenses. We have to respect these licenses. For example, if you are in internet and you find one resource with this license, this logo, this is mean that you have the possibility to copy, distribute, modify, and share this content. You can mix it, use it, mix it with another content, improve it, etc. But you have to cite the author. You have to attribute the authorship. This is for this example. For the second example that I selected for this license, CC BY NCSA, you can modify the content. You can use it for non-commercial use. And now don't forget to cite the author, and the new resource should be shared under this license. This is the meaning of share alike. When you will use a resource under this license, it is important to share it again under this license. So this is the definition of open educational resources in general, and these are some examples about the Creative Commons licenses, who are, as I said, open licenses. Yes. So now, how to use the OER for teaching? Or which example, which practices can I follow? So when we speak about how to use the way of using OER, we are speaking about open educational practices. The open educational practices are the practices that support the use and reuse, the production of open educational resources, not only, but it should be for innovative pedagogical models to promote innovation, and also to help learners to be co-producers on their lifelong learning path. So these components are very important. So what we found is we shifted from the open educational resources from the open educational practices. Open educational resources, in the beginning, the first definition was given at 2002, and it was about the organization, the institution, invited instructor and asked them to promote this movement by producing content, open content, and by using open content. So in the beginning, the idea was concentrated on the content. Then, 1 decade later, we focus more on practices. So, okay, now you can produce, you know what is open educational resources, but how to use them? How to use them in order to improve the quality of my teaching. So it's OEP is a practice-centered approach. Then how to innovate through open educational practices. For example, the Smart Learning Institute of Beijing Normal University, in collaboration with Unesco, with Unesco and other organizations, proposed a framework that helped the instructor in order to do these practices and to adapt them. So here for them, open educational practices is of course related to the use of open educational resources, and to produce these resources, when you will produce educational resources, also you are invited to put the Creative Commons licenses. Also, it is about the open teaching. It is important to share your practices also with your colleagues. It is about also the open collaboration. Here we are speaking about your students. So it is important to promote collaboration, and to this culture of openness should be also spread for your students. And the open assessment. Here we are speaking about examples of peer assessment and peer review. We will see together in my previous slides, concrete examples of this. So all of this will be will be enabled with the technology. As you know, for this generation now, we are speaking about using digital technology, and an instructor today should know how to enhance, how to improve the quality of learning, how to emphasize the collaboration or the peer assessment, different activities using digital tools. So let's share together. Let's speak about some concrete examples about open practices. As an educator, as an instructor, it's very important when using the open educational resources to think about your objectives, your learning outcomes first. First, what I want, what I have, what are my objectives, what are my learning outcomes. Then I will I will seek for open educational resources. So I will, when I do my research, maybe I will find some very interesting resources, but it's not very conformed with my objectives. So it is important to read carefully the license, and if it is possible to modify these resources, so it is very it will be very helpful for us. Here I will speak about an example, the example of the videos, because now we are, all of us, when teaching online, it is we use it to use the videos. Here I will share with you an example of YouTube videos. For example, here we are looking for a content about digital skills. So alhamdulillah, in YouTube, we can just, there is a functionality that help us to just search for Creative Commons videos. So here you have just to click on filters here, and then among the features, we will find Creative Commons. We click on Creative Commons. YouTube will select for us only open license videos. And here we can click Show More. And we will see that this video is under Creative Commons Attribution License. What does this mean? This means that we can modify these videos. For example, maybe the video is too long and we want just a small part. Just a small part is conformed and adapted to my learning outcomes and my objectives. So this author, was the one who recorded this video, allowed to me to modify, to maybe just use one part of this video. Also, I can make this video interactive. I can use some tools, digital tools that allows to me to add some questions to this video. So why losing my time? As this video existed already in internet, it is very interesting and I can modify it. I can make it interactive and adapted for my objective and for my course. So this is one of the practices about how to use content, open educational resources. Another example is about using tools and services that support collaborative learning and ask your students to share their work under open license. So it is very important also to spread this mindset of openness with our students. The example that I chose for you is called the collaborative editing tools. So there is many tools that allow to your students to collaborate and to work to edit together. The Office 365 if they have access to it. There is Framasoft here, it is an open source tool, and Google Docs, of course, it is free, but it's not open source. For Google Docs, they can, for example, they can also add Creative Commons license. Unfortunately, I don't know why, but this functionality was here and was very useful. But now when I tried a few days later to use this functionality, this is what I found. So in Google Docs here, there is add-ons. We can click here, get add-ons, and then Creative Commons license chooser. We can choose this, and then to install it. And normally this in the menu, a menu will be added in Google Doc. there will be Creative Commons licenses. But I don't know why now when I installed it, this function is just momentarily disabled. And I hope that in the near future, Google will resolve this problem, because really it's a very interesting functionality that helped our students. They will edit together and then they will share their work under an open license. But it's also possible, if this functionality is not here, they can just copy and paste the appropriate logo. They will choose the appropriate logo of Creative Commons, one of the licenses of Creative Commons, and they will share their work. Another example of open practices also with our students, for example, we can use the collaborative mind map. The collaborative mind map, we will ask them to summarize their ideas together to produce a mind map together. Here, for example, when you use Google, here is an example of a mind map done by 3 students. They are here, they collaborated together to produce this mind map. And then let's ask them to share this diagram and to make it public and visible by the research engines. So this is in order to spread this culture of openness with our students. Another example of open practices is about encouraging peer and public review. You can start by proposing an activity about peer assessment and peer review in your classroom, with your learning management system, because this functionality exists in all the learning management system. It's called peer assessment. They can assess each other. This has helped them to construct their language, to compare them to other peer, of course, and to learn more, because when you will assess, you will learn more. Then you can propose an activity and another to be open for the public. For example, here we can use Wikipedia. We can ask our students to create a Wikipedia page or to edit a Wikipedia page. It's very easy, so they have just to click here and edit, and they can create an account or just modify with an anonymous profile. And they will learn that in Wikipedia it's very important to be careful. You have to cite your source. So your source must be verifiable, and all the content of Wikipedia is under the license CC BY. So everyone can modify the content, but fortunately also there is a huge community, Wikipedia, and that not all the revision that we will make will be visible. So alhamdulillah, so this exercise will show to our students that it's really, Wikipedia is really a reliable source, and we can trust Wikipedia, because if we make any change, if you want to modify Wikipedia page, there is a community who are checking what all the modification, and this is really a very good exercise for them. I tried it with my students and they enjoyed a lot this experience. So this is among the open practices that we can use and with our students. Another example is the use of the open textbook. Now there is textbook, there is open textbook in the internet. There is very interesting really resources. We found a whole book with different exercises under Creative Commons license. So it's not only just a course, it's not only just a video, but we found a book available in open license. It's you can use it as an instructor, and you can also ask your students, for example, why not to create new activities by remixing content of these open activities and to create a new one. It is also a good exercise and a good open practices that you can try. So there is many open practices for an instructor. Also, you can encourage your students to follow massive open online courses. As you know, there is a lot of massive open online courses, and you have to. It's important to encourage your students to be enrolled in these courses. You encourage them to share their work under an open license and to be engaged in many citizens' actions. Also, this is another example of practices using the social media. And teach them that collaboration, openness, and sharing make them stronger. For you as an instructor, you can also...
Excuse me, Dr. Haifa. So you still have 5 minutes, no worries. But I just want to take this opportunity to also ask the attendees to write their questions in the chat so that I can exchange with you about their questions after. Okay, thank you. Okay. So 5 minutes to go. Thank you.
No, it's okay. As an instructor, you can participate and support the creation of MOOCs in your university, but it is important that the MOOC materials should be under an open license, as already presented by my colleagues. So not all the MOOCs now, unfortunately, are open. Yes, this is what we can say. Unfortunately, we find many MOOCs under copyrights, and they are not free. So for you as an open practices, it's important to encourage creation of really open MOOCs. Share the educational resources that you create under an open license. Also, of course, we encourage this. And the open practices also help you to learn new pedagogies and new teaching practices through openness. And it is important to share your pedagogical practices, your experience, your innovative practices with your colleagues. It's also among the open practices. By the end, to conclude, we can say that innovation is a necessity for today's instructors. Open educational practices are among the pedagogical practices that foster pedagogical innovation. And open practices help the instructor to identify new teaching, pedagogy, and practices, to satisfy your students' needs and enhance their learning, to improve the quality of the course content, to spread the culture of openness among your students. And in general, we can say that we will contribute to the sustainable development of the humanity. As presented by my colleague, the open education and inclusivity, quality education is one of the goals, the 4th goals of the sustainable development. So, dear colleagues, are you ready to leave your comfort zone and to try to start innovate using open educational practices? And thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Haifa, for this valuable presentation. With all the pointers actually to the various ways to enrich the practices, teaching and learning practices of the educators and learners. So thank you for this valuable intervention. I'm just waiting for some questions. So we have one technical question, let's say. It's about Creative Commons. So do we need to put a reference besides the media, let's say an image or a video, to indicate the source of the Creative Commons content?
Yes,
okay.
when we use any content, you have to cite the source. If it is a video, if it is an image, it's important to put the source. Yes, here are, for example, here in my presentation, there is here, for example, for this image, it is
mentioned.
This one, yes, this one is under CC BY. I used this image from PowerPoint. It offers us the possibility to use open images. So this is the license CC BY. For this one is from Shutterstock. This is why I didn't put anything, because it's we pay for this, and this is an under CC BY. Yes.
Thank you. since we don't have other questions, so I have one question, but maybe we can just evoke it quickly. It's maybe one tiny note in there. So when reading the title, I was thrilled to know more about the how we can exchange hints, you know, like pedagogical practices, how we can enhance, like mutualize our expertise as educators, but also maybe learners can exchange this, and not only to share the content. So you gave us plenty of pointers towards how we can use the available content that is in there nowadays available due to information technology. But honestly, I'm still on my thirst to know, to answer the original question, how we can extract the nice pedagogical practices from this content. Because inside the video, we have the content itself, but also the way the educator delivered that content. So I'm wondering how we can extract that. So and just one way of doing this, I'm thinking about the learning labs. So like, I mean, the physical places that we have within universities, and where educators and learners can go to the same place and exchange about their practices and the ways they are teaching and learning, methodologies, approaches, and so on. And I can think of learning labs networks, such as the network established between Sousse University, Alexandria University, and the University of Geneva, as one example of a learning lab network where we can go to a higher level, like where a larger circle of educators can share their expertise. So again, this is happening in a physical place. How can we benefit from the information technology, from a distributed existence of educators all around the world, and an open access to these expertise and practices? So can we imagine kind of like virtual learning labs in the future, or open learning labs? I'm just wondering if we can have something like this.
So Lilia will speak about this.
Yeah, it could be an open question for every one of us, and we can just try to relate to it with the other two talks, actually. So yeah, it's rather a no than a question. Thank you once again, and I would like to welcome the second speaker, my dear colleague and friend, Lilia Schneity from Sousse University in Tunisia. She's an associate professor and researcher of computer sciences at the Higher Institute of Computer Sciences and Communication Technology, University of Sousse, Tunisia, and a graduate of the University of Braunschweig in Germany, where she read for an engineer and master's degree in computer science. She's a member of the Prince Research Lab at the University of Sousse and was an associate researcher at the Computer Science Department at Télécom Bretagne-Brest in France. She has also a diploma of Habilitation à diriger des recherches, HDR, in computer science. She is the co-author of the first computer science MOOC in computer science in Tunisia, hosted at FUN, France Université Numérique. Currently coordinator of pedagogical innovation at her university and member of several research projects about pedagogical innovation, such as Let's Sega, Erasmus Plus Inside project, and Obtain project, like among other activities. So please welcome Dr. Lilia, and the floor is yours. Again, you can start writing your questions meanwhile, and we can answer them right after the presentation.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we see you. We see your screen, and we hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, dear friend Bilal, for the introduction of my talk. And I'm very happy to attend this conference. Thank you very much to my dear colleague and friend, Professor Ghada Al-Khayat, for the invitation to attend this conference and to give this talk around open learning and to support innovative teaching. I'm sorry if I will make some mistakes in English, but I will try try to explain the idea that we have behind putting in place an open learning framework for innovative teaching. So the outline of my talk is the following. At the beginning, in the same direction with my dear friend Haifa, I will go back to some concepts related to open education and to open learning. Then I will speak and share with you the results of a kind of experiment that we have conducted related to open learning in the three countries from the Maghreb, Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco. And finally, I will finish my talk with the 3 slides related to observation and future orientations. So first, the context of this talk is related to the evolution of learning. Actually, we moved during the last, let's say, 20 years from the transmissive learning to the active learning, and then with the Web 2 tools, we are more and more speaking about the social learning, and with the new mobile technologies, we are delivering mobile learning. In this context, we have observed that during the last years, we are more speaking about open educational resources and MOOCs, and interest is more oriented to open learning. However, I think that I think, and many researchers and university lecturer think that OERs and MOOCs are not the only development that we have in open learning. We have other development that we should also observe and use in order to deliver open learning frameworks. And we also, as nicely presented by my dear friend Haifa, we have observed a lot of innovative approaches and innovative pedagogical approaches used more and more, especially during the last 2 years, thanks to the advancement and to the progress in educational technologies. More recently, we are more speaking about blended learning and the way that we can articulate face-to-face and online learning thanks to the technologies. This morning, through the presentation made by my dear colleague and friend Kuthair, we observed the characteristics of the open educational resources, and we have seen that it is possible to reuse these resources in many contexts. We can revise and modify these resources. It is possible to combine these resources with other resources. We can redistribute these resources, and we can also retain them. Now, if we focus on open learning, actually, when we deliver open learning, the main concept that we have to target is flexibility. Means that we have to deliver learning in many ways, in many situations, at any place and at any time. Actually, often we mix this term, or we use this term to refer to e-learning in general, or to flexible learning, or to distance learning. And the term openness, it refers basically to any teaching organization or institution which will offer the learner the possibility and the choices and the opportunity to study in various ways, in various situations, and the learning will be adapted to their context. Now, if we take into consideration open educational resources as the pillar of open learning or open learning environment, we may actually focus on 2 main directions. From one side, open educational resources will enable us to have this kind of open learning and teaching practices, as well described by my colleague Haifa. So we can share these resources, we can implement these resources in various contexts, in various scenarios. We can actually be part of open networks. We will be encouraged to produce this content and to deliver this content to various profiles of students. resources, but also we have also to target qualities of open learning content. We will deliver, for example, as presented this morning by Kuthair, we have to think about accessibility, we have to think about licenses, about the way that we will discover and find these resources, and what kind of platform, what kind of technical frameworks will be there in order to deliver these resources. Let's have a look on this kind of open learning. Let's say that it's a tentative of an open learning that we tried to deliver during the last year. What is innovative in this experience that it concerns 3 countries, Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco, and 3 e-learning experts from each country were involved in the design, implementation, and deployment of this cycle. So it is an innovative regional project, and it is the content is based on online and open educational resources. And what we have done in order to provide these resources, followed an instructional design method which is called ADI, where we have first analyzed the needs, and then we started the design of the resources, then we implemented the resources, and we integrated a continuous feedback in order to update and to enhance the quality of the resources. What is interesting that we have deployed until today 5 sessions. Actually, each session has a duration of 5 weeks. Each session is composed of 3 modules related to technology-enhanced learning, and the workload was around 2 hours per day for each learner, and around 542 learners followed this learning. Actually, the 5th session is currently delivered, and it was launched at the beginning of October. So here is you have an idea about the results. Let's have a look on the results with percentages. We see that so we have a number of participants who did not participate. They registered to these 3 modules, but at the end they were not able to follow the course. But we can see that 74% of the participants succeed to finish this online learning, and we have around 14% of dropout. We have conducted a kind of evaluation based on questionnaire with the learner, and we see through this graphic that the majority of the learner have a lot appreciated the adopted open learning scenario. Then they think that they have acquired skills for instructional design. The majority of them also think that they got the opportunity to get skills related to development of online courses and to online tutoring. They also think that based on the resources delivered, they were able to get actually methodological skills related to open learning, and they are motivated to follow other courses. Now I arrive to the last part of my presentation, which is related to the observation and future orientation. First thing, before writing my observation, I would like to refer to a very nice presentation made by Dr. Nariman Hajhamu in the last APITEL edition, and she actually spoke about the strategic orientation related to higher education in the post-COVID time. So she actually she split these observations, her strategic observation in 3 levels: macro, meso, and micro. I will follow the same actually organization, and I will say that based on this experience, we can see that on the regional level, which means the 3 countries, but also on the national level, we think that it is very important to get a technological infrastructure that will support this kind of open learning, but also a legal and an agile framework that will enable actually, and that will promote the production and the development of open learning resources. Second thing, if we focus on universities level, which is the meso level, I think that it is very important in order to deliver this open learning environments to have a kind of open digital ecosystem. This open digital ecosystem will involve all stakeholders in promotion of open learning, in the promotion of open education. This should be at the level of the governance, but also teacher, learner, administrative staff, and all involved stakeholder in this open educational process. And quality is a very important issue and is a very important aspect to consider. For example, here in Tunisia, we are more and more focusing on quality of education through various very nice and huge projects related to quality. Last thing, which is related to the micro, this is actually very important also level, because if we would like to go forward open learning, we have to conduct many trainings of trainer. We have to emphasize and speak more about innovative pedagogical approaches, and we have also to work further on digitalization of content. This should not be stopped after COVID. We should work further on digitalization of content. Now, if we would like to set up this kind of open educational frameworks, what should we do? So at the left of my screen, you see that I have put the educational triangle, which is composed of three pillars: the content, the learner, and the teacher. Now, if we move to open educational framework, we will still have this triangle, which will be composed of open educational resources, open learning services for the learner, but also open teaching efforts that should be delivered by the teacher in designing of open teaching scenarios, in designing of open teaching frameworks. But this model, this 5-component open education model, will also have two other components which are more and more required in our universities. First component will be to answer the needs of various learners with various profiles. For example, now we are more and more speaking about inclusive learning, so this could be possible through this framework. But also this will also be will guarantee this open to employability and development of professional development of our students. Let's imagine that if we deliver, for example, open educational resources, it is not only for using these resources, but also to enable the assessment on these resources, and to actually to accept credits and assessments that are gained by the student on these resources. To finish my talk, I think that nowadays we are more and more speaking about Industry 4.0, which is actually the revolution of the industry. But also we have to speak about Education 4, which comes after the first version of education, where we were speaking about knowledge transmission. Then Education 2, was more focusing on knowledge online. Education 3 is focusing on the construction of knowledge, but now in Education 4, which it's in line with Industry 4, it's more oriented to innovation, to open learning, to micro-credential frameworks, and all this will actually be in line with industry, with the revolution that we have now in industry. From my side, I'm really focusing on these aspects. For example, on my research, for example, I'd like to share with you some topics on which I'm working with my students. I'm working on context-aware assessment and intelligent assessment, on open learning models and self-regulation of learner, and also on smart learning frameworks. To finish my talk, this last slide is announcement of this has been already announced on some social networks, but I'm happy also to announce this project with many of my colleagues and friends today present in this conference, and it is a project that will answer many of the questions that are now highlighted in this conference. We are more and more speaking about open scenario, open praxis, open learning. So we have actually designed this project in order to enable open education frameworks on Euro-Mediterranean countries in order to target sustainable development. And our objective is to design scenarios for teaching sustainable goals, but through open learning, through open education resources, but also enabling open praxis of this scenario. Thank you very much for your for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts around open learning, and I'm happy to get some questions or remarks regarding my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Lilia, for this valuable presentation. I already sent a reminder for questions, so we still have a few minutes if you will see some questions popping up. I would really like I'm really happy to see you always shining on the cutting edge last trends about innovative pedagogical approaches and technologies. So this is really a pleasure, and I'm curious about your experiment. So do you think that it is reproducible, or what would be the conditions for its reproduction, maybe in other regions or in an extended version with other regions, let's say worldwide, for more openness actually? So this is the idea behind in my head. And do you see any, let's say, obstacles to this due to some limitations or discrepancies in the legal frameworks that we have in different regions, or let's say the culture background, or maybe the work conditions such as like resources and equipment? So do you see any thing that prevent us from reproducing this experiment, or do you recommend that rather we extend it and we make it a larger experience?
Thank you very much, Bilal, for your two nice questions. So regarding the first question, there are some discussion already. I'm not sharing a secret, but it was also publicly said that there are some discussion with some other regions in order to implement this framework and to see what kind of lessons we can learn from through this implementation in other contexts. So right now it's still at the beginning, but maybe it could be deployed in other contexts. Now, regarding the second question, so it's possible. It's generic, so it is possible. The second question is related to the context. Actually, the legal framework, it's right. The legal framework depends from the countries, from the region. Let's say maybe in our region, in Maghreb, there are similarities in educational systems. So maybe we have, let's say, similar things, but it's not exactly the same thing. So that's why in my slide observation, I think that these three levels are very important. Involvement, when we put in place a legal framework, the involvement of the universities, of the local instances is very important, because these instances are aware about requirement from the context, and they can actually adapt and suggest some modification or some orientation to this legal framework. So instantiation of this legal framework, we can think about a very generic legal framework, but it's instantiation, if I'm thinking in computer science.
an appropriation of the
appropriation, let's say, an appropriation of this legal framework based on the context could be very important, because it will guarantee the correct implementation and the correct use of this legal framework. And I think that during COVID, we through the webinars that we have that we got, this question of legal framework was often posé. Often
it was always present in the discussions.
Yes,
I
exactly.
So you left us after this presentation at the right spot, at like this slide from our colleague Nariman about the micro, meso, and micro level, which brings us actually to the last presentation. Of course, we can get back to you with additional questions if the participants would like to. And thank you for answering my question very eloquently. So this brings us to the third speaker, Dr. Fauzi Barud from Lebanon, because maybe he will answer some of those regional aspects, being the chair of UNESCO chair on open educational resources for access and success, and the assistant vice president for information technology at NDU, the Notre Dame University in Louaisi in Lebanon. So since 30 years, he leads the campus-wide planning and implementation of information technologies, and to support teaching and learning at the university, and being guests several times, me, Ghada, and several of the participants in this workshop, we personally attest for and witness for his wise, efficient, and innovative leadership at NDU. He made the integration of open educational resources a key strategic goal at the university. Under his watch, NDU became an institutional affiliate of Creative Commons, and he is currently in the process of formulating policies for successful use of OER in teaching and learning. So I missed introducing the title for Lilia because I was eager to hear from her. So he will be talking to us about advancing open educational practice in line with UNESCO OER recommendations, I think at the NDU level and at the MENA region level. So Dr. Fauzi, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you بلال حبيبي، شكرا جزيلا وتحيات للجميع. وبصراحة يعني بعد من الصبح عم بسمع البرزنتيشن، يعني honestly بتقلكم يعني شيء بفرح، شيء بكبر القلب. وشغلة تانية بدي أقولها، my presentation will be blended يعني Arabic and English. بس شغلة تانية حابب أقولها، أول شيء بدي أتشكر الزملاء على البرزنتيشن الرائعين، من starting with Dr. Isam in the morning about open science، لمحمد، لمختار، لهيفا، لليليا، excellent presentation. شيء بفرح وشيء بكبر القلب. Thank you بلال. My presentation هلا topics اللي انحكوا اليوم انحكى كثير topics مهمين. أنا what I will try to do in my presentation, I will take exactly what I've been doing in Lebanon, يعني at my university and at the national level. You can see my presentation, right, Bilal?
Absolutely. We hear you just here and we see the slides.
Excellent. Yeah. All right. So let me just briefly, tell you, about how did I start with this open movement in Lebanon. This is goes back to 2014, when I participated in the Open Book Project. And for those of you who don't know what the Open Book Project, it was a joint project by the Department of State and Creative Commons, and of course Alexo, the Arab League of Educational, Cultural and Scientific Organization. And I do believe that Alexo are doing great work still in the region. And I think everybody, all of us should be under and work under the umbrella of Alexo. The objective of this open book project was to raise awareness of the potential of OER and to promote the uptake of online learning materials. يعني كان الهدف انه كيف نعمل raising awareness، شو عم بيصير بامريكا، شو عم بيصير بكندا، شو عم بيصير بدول الغرب، كيف بدنا نقدر نحن نجيب هالاكسبيرينس على الدول العربية. Of course, كمان another objective was to support the creation of Arabic language open educational resources. وهيدي شغله it's much needed يعني، وخصوصا انه نحن بحاجه لها. يعني بما معنى اخر انه ما نكون نحن بس consumer of information، كمان نكون نحن قادرين نعمل production and producer of information. And of course another objective was to those people who went into this project, يعني it was from Lebanon, from Kuwait, from Saudi Arabia, from Qatar, from all, about 15 countries in the Arab region, was also to offer training and support to governments, other educators and students to put existing OER to use and develop their own. Okay, so this is the context of, how did I start with the OER in Lebanon. So when I came back, briefly, when I came back from the state, that was in 2014, I started my meeting with the president of our university, and I explained to him what's happening, the open movement, what's happening in the United States. And we agreed that with the president to give a presentation to our leadership, leadership العمدة with chairperson تبع department وهلم جرى, and this is what happened. So I got the blessing of the upper senior management, and this is very important step, to be done to bring leadership and the senior management on board of this initiative. And since then, believe me, I've been doing awareness campaign, and I will talk about this later on. Awareness campaign, workshop, capacity building. And the thing is, I want you to know, is not just at my university, because it's very important to bring this initiative to NDU and to Notre Dame University. But I move now, as you will see in when I present my case, the cases I've done, I moved to the national level, and moreover, I'm doing a lot of training, a lot of awareness campaign and capacity building in the Arab region. Like I'm doing it since I am the Unesco chair. I was appointed the Unesco chair for OER in Lebanon and in the region. Part of the thing I'm doing is, just give those workshops, those training, and all those training. I'm doing it. It's free and open. Anybody later on, you will get my email. Any university, any institution, any organization who are interested in knowing more about open education, OER, and stuff like that, I'll be more than happy to conduct awareness workshop in this idea. About UNESCO and the role of UNESCO in the open OER, in the open movement and OER in particular. Some of our colleagues talk about the milestones, but briefly I will go quickly since they were covered before about important dates. In 2002, the first forum on the impact of open courseware back then. In this particular forum, this is where the participant in this forum expressed their satisfaction, and they talk about universal education resource, okay, for the whole humanity. And also what they have done, they gave the first name, which is OER. بهيدي المؤتمر حكيوا عن شيء اسمه universal education resource in general، واتفقوا بين بعضهم انه يعطوا الاسم شيء اسمه open education resource، ومن هون اجى الاسم تبع OER. So that's why it was coined by UNESCO in 2002. Later on, after 6 years, in 2008, they had the Cape Town Open Education Declaration, and here they talk about how to unlock the promise of open educational resources. And in this event, they commit, to the pursuit يعني يتابعوا بقصة open education resources, and of course to promote more the open education movement. And they talk about 3 different strategies back then. They talk about the educator and learners, how to encourage faculty members, students, blah blah blah, to go forward into the direction. And they also another strategy, they talk about OER, and the third one they talk about open education policy. And then in 2012 we had the Paris OER declaration, okay, where they recommended in this conference, they had about 10 recommendations. For example, they also talk about awareness of OER, they're talking about the enabling environment, they talk about the developing of different strategies and policy, they talk about capacity building, they talk about strategic alliances, so on and so forth. And of course, they talk also about research, what our dear colleague Lilia was talking about, encouraging research in the area of OER. And then in 2017, you know, after 5 years, we had the Ljubljana Action Plan, and they called it From Awareness to Action. And the Ljubljana OER Summit or conference, and during this conference, they discussed, you know, and I was present at this conference, they discussed, you know, what we call concrete action in 5 strategic areas to support the mainstreaming of OER. يعني ما نضل بس انه عم نحكي theory و definition, we need to do this and that and هذا المجرى. بالليوبليانا OER action plan حكيوا عن هالconcrete action, and more specifically لانه بال 2015 اطلقوا شيء اسمه ال SDG from 1 to 17, and more specifically they talk about supporting the mainstreaming of OER around SDG 4, okay, about quality, lifelong learning, and so on and so forth. And in this exact conference, they pointed out about what were the challenges that might hinder the mainstreaming of OER, and they identified them. For example, they talk about, you know, capacity building and awareness campaign. You know, this is it might be a problem. They talk about the language and cultural issues. You know, our colleagues also talk about language and cultural issues in previous sessions. Okay, and then also they another challenge was the inclusiveness and equity access to quality OER, and this is what our friend Couture tackled in his presentation. And of course, you know, they talk about a sustainability model. So anyway, UNESCO, you know, were from 2002 until we arrived in 2019. In 2019, we had what we call, I consider it a very historic moment, and this is a very historic recommendation, which is UNESCO final recommendation on OER. And why it was, I consider it a historic one, because all 190, 92, 93 states, or everybody approved the final on OER recommendation. And the final recommendation, briefly, it outlined for us 5 areas of action, from building the capacity of stakeholders to create, access, reuse, adapt, and redistribute OER, to developing supportive policy, encouraging inclusive and equitable quality OER, nurturing the creation of sustainability models for OER, and of course promoting and reinforcing international cooperation in OER. So those are the 5 areas of action which were approved at this important conference. Moreover, the important thing they gave us at this conference, they gave us 2 important definitions, because as you know, OER, a lot of people, a lot of worldwide talk about OER. We have so many definitions, from Hewitt Foundation to Creative Commons to different advocate of OER they gave, but now we have a unified definition for open education resources. But the key thing in this definition is that open license, that, you know, also our colleagues talk about open license, and open license here because from my experience, from my training, people think that, anything they find on the internet, it's free, it means they can use it. But free does not mean equal open. This is something we have to keep in mind. Free does not equal open, and open is open means more than just free. Open means, somebody talk about the 5 R's, those were coined by David Wiley, and the 5 R, activities that, the user should be able to, a resource to be truly open, it should have those 5 R attached to it. And of course, no cost, which is free of charge. So this is the two definition, open education resources and open license. So now we have a standard definition for both those two terms worldwide. So this is briefly the milestones of UNESCO and the UNESCO work when it comes to open education and open education resources. Next, what I will talk about, I will tell you briefly about my experience, my approach. One thing, I've been doing since I started, my work with OER in Lebanon, anything I do, I was aligning it with a UNESCO recommendation. And from awareness, from creating policy, stuff like that, anything, I've done, it is well aligned with whatever recommendation UNESCO have. So if we look at, fine, we have so many definitions, we have papers, we have a lot of research, but when it comes to implementation of OER at an institution level or at the national level, it's a different story. يعني عم نحكي هون بلشنا بالجد وبلشنا بالpractice. If you look at this framework, I think, this framework, you can use it if you are at the university level, or you are at the national level, يعني government, Ministry of Education, whatever you are. But this framework has 7 different factors. But the 3 pillars of this framework are at the bottom right here. You have the policy. This is the first pillar. You have the infrastructure, and you have the open licenses. And what do you mean by this? It means that, before, okay, at this level, open education resource, we're talking about OER, about training, awareness campaign, how to use the license, how to use the Creative Commons license, where to find OER, how to mix different resources. I found one resource with this license, how I mix it to another. This is all under OER. But why those 3 are the pillars? First of all, you need a framework, for open license in your institution. A lot of institutions, they have already, they have a copyright laws, and I think Professor Mukhtar talked very well about, the issues with licensing, copyright, and stuff like that. So you need to implement what we call an open license framework at the institution. And this open license thing, it should align with whatever policy you might have at the institution level, okay? Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of conflict, you're going to have a lot of problems with the faculty member, educators at your institution. The second pillar is the infrastructure. You need infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, we're talking about, software, we're talking about the internet, we're talking about so many technology involved, at the university level. But most important is, to be able to create a digital repository so that faculty member and the people who want to create open education resources be able to host those resources, and the digital repository falls under infrastructure. And the most important, another important pillar is the policy. You need a policy, because the first thing, faculty member will ask you, is there a policy at our institution about OER? So policy, and I will show you some example of the policies that we have developed here in Lebanon, which can be shared with anybody later on in the future, or any institution, whether in Egypt or Libya or Tunis or whatever. So those are the 3 pillars right here. And here, as we said, open education resources. And then on top of this, we have the curriculum and teaching methodology. And here, we're talking about how to integrate OER into our curriculum. I teach mathematics. How do I find OER and how do I do the integration of OER, okay, in my subject area. And this is another important factor in this framework. And the last one that Lily was talking about is the research, you know, and this is, we've done a lot of research here at the university because we have deployed, you know, so many. Now we have maybe around 30 courses at our university. They are fully on dependent on open education resources. So we wanted to gauge the attitudes of our faculty member, our student, about the impact of OER. So the research and the outcome and the success factors, all those things are very important. On the side here, if you see the stakeholders, you know, the stakeholders can be involved at any one of those stages here. And you as a champion or somebody championing the OER at his university or her university should be, you know, we have so many stakeholders involved, from student to university president, to faculty member, to librarian, instructional designer. And if we're talking about, you know, like at the national level, we're talking about ministries of education, UNESCO, UNICEF, World Bank, so on and so forth. So I think this is a framework that, you know, I depended on it, and it proved to me that it is a very well structured, and it helped me a lot in my implementation of OER. The thing is, you know, like my approach in 2014, 2015, I just put a very nice action, a simple plan, how I'm going to approach, you know, integrating or introducing OER at my university. So I started with awareness and capacity building campaign. You know, I started with top level senior, and then, you know, on a daily basis, maybe not daily basis, 3 times per week, you know, I give a workshop at the university level for our professor. And then faculty member at my institution were asking me, please, can you come to my classroom and give a presentation to my student about OER? And this is what I've been doing. Then I moved to the library. Library can play a very important, very important support for you whenever you're trying to implement OER at the institution level. So I trained the faculty, the staff member of the library about, you know, open education resources, about licensing, Creative Commons license, all those things. So many workshops for the librarian. And then we decided, you know, to start piloting OER at one of our faculty in one of our courses, and it was at the Faculty of Humanities. And we started with English courses, you know, where we have so many students in multi-section taking English. So what I've done is I brought those faculty members, maybe around 10 of them, because we have 10 sections, and I gave them a focused training on OER and Creative Commons license, and I helped them to curate and find resources to replace whatever textbook, you know, students used to, the publisher textbook. And believe me, we had a great success story at this level. And then now we expanded the OER movement at our university to other faculties, and now we have 7 faculties at the university, and all 7 faculties now we have professors using OER and trying to implement OER in their courses. My engagement strategy, you know, it's as I said, you know, just now, it depended on awareness and capacity building, poster and multimedia. We were participating, you know, on campus, a lot of activities, like, for example, the Open Education Week. Every year they do it, and international. We had, you know, every year we have an Open Education Week at my university. We did a lot of individual discussion, people coming to my office asking me about, you know, different discussion about copyright, so on and so forth. And then, you know, the collaborative project, we have a lot of, at the Faculty of Humanities, and now at the Faculty of Science, a lot of math professors are working on collaborative projects between each other concerning, you know, open education resources. And of course, you know, presentation, public forum and panels, email announcement on the social media, so on and so forth. So the lessons learned, you know, yes,
sorry,
Bilal.
Yes. Yeah, if you just allow me, dear friend, yes. Dr. Fauzi, you still have 3 minutes, so
3 minutes only?
Yeah.
Okay, so okay. Can you give me 4?
Of course, absolutely.
All right. No, all right. So I need more. So anyway, lesson learned supporting OER, things from my experience. First of all, your faculty members should be convinced about the benefits of OER. Another issue is the quality of OER is a very important thing from an instructor point of view. Collaboration between instructors with common interest is important. You have to create a community of practice, math teacher, physics teacher, English teacher, and this is what I have done. They need the right training, the right tools, for your instructor. And then for institution, OER policy. OER policy, and I will repeat, this is a key thing, at an institution to be able, and this is very hard, it's difficult to create an OER policy, and this is something very important. Incentive for faculty member, because faculty member, they're telling you, I have the publisher book, I have the presentation, I have the material coming to, why do I have to go and try to waste my time and blah blah blah. You have to tell them what is it for your faculty member, why you are using OER, you as champion of OER on campus. And then incentive, it can be monetary incentive, it can be promotion incentive. Now I'm working on what we call digital badges. Every faculty member who attend a series of OER training, he will get a badge that he can display on social media, Facebook, Twitter, or wherever he wants. Develop a strategy for involving the stakeholders, so on and so forth. At the national level, quickly, so as I said in the beginning, I decided to move now, because it's not enough to have this initiative at my university. So I decided to move at the national level. So our president signed an agreement with the Center of Education Research and Development, which is the right arm of the ministry. They are in charge of the curriculum, writing the Lebanese curriculum. So this is what we call knowledge transfer. What we know at the university, we need to transfer it to at the national level. So I started doing also awareness and capacity building. I did maybe more than 50 workshops for the trainers, faculty members. I've been doing this since 2016. And then, believe me, 3 days ago, we launched the OER policy at the national level at the center. We don't have time, we went through a development cycle for the OER policy, from forming a committee at the national level, workshops, review meetings, so on and so forth. But I will go. I will be ready to answer any question later on. But we went through an OER policy development cycle. This is the cycle. Later on, you will have. But why we need a policy? Because the policy is the al-itar al-tashri'i for the use, production, and development of open education. And it's very important to have a policy. Of course, when you have a policy, it will help the institution to foster a role in implementing the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, and in particular SDG 4. And of course, another important thing about the policy is it will ensure the use of knowledge as a human right for all. كمان هيدي حكوا عنها قبل. Avoiding the privatizing knowledge acquisition. And of course, it will help moving from consumer of information to creator of information. When we talk about policy, OER policy, one of the obstacles you're gonna have and you will have to face is, it should be aligned with other policy at the institution. For example, the human resource policy, يعني بيجي استاذ بقول لك او حدا عم يشتغل بوزارة التربية بده يقول لك مثلا انا what I will get for it. If you have a human resource policy, it should be maybe modified, or you need to align your OER policy with the human resource policy, with the intellectual copyright policy, with the ICT policy, so on and so forth. And of course, the quality assurance policy. And I will show you a quick example. Those are the building blocks of OER. Future direction. Just I need 2 more minutes, حبيبي بلال. حبيبي بقى انا ليك نحن بلبنان هلا وبتعرف نحن معذبين هون، يعني لازم تعطينا تشانس شوي 3. لا رح اقول لك شغله. I have
معلش بلال exception عشان دكتور فوز.
exception 3 minutes. رح اقول لك بلال
especially that this is very important for everyone. So this is why. So
tout ce qui est legal framework is very important.
بس انا اللي عم اقوله بلال، لانه انا بتعرف اذا ما خليتني فرج اللي share my knowledge with my colleagues بهالimportant، بتحب الليله ما بقدر نام بصراحه، لانه I need to share بصراحه. يعني لازم انا المعرفه اللي عندي انقلها وحضر الاجواء تنقدر نتعاون مع الزملاء الكرام يعني ريلي لانه قلت لك انا كبر قلبي بس سمعت البرزنتيشن.
خلينا تفضل خلينا نكمل.
So the future direction in our initiative, sharing our OER initiative and experience, launch a research mechanism for Lebanon and the MENA region to measure the effectiveness and efficiency of OER, and of course continue the advocacy for OER in Lebanon. Another thing, I want to point out, I created a website. It's called OER Lebanon. So oerlab.org. Well, I have so many resources, and moreover, I'm trying to curate resources and initiatives happening in the Arab region. You can go to the OER Lab and look at it. And if there are resources that you would like it to be on OER Lebanon, please send me an email, and immediately it will be included on OER Lebanon. And then this is my email. This is my email if you want to write it down. Let me just, before we quit, if I need 2 minutes, if I would like to show a video so that, you will listen to testimonial. It is a 2.5 minute video. It's very important for participants to see the opinion of leadership at the university, instructor at the university, and the student at the university, their experience with OER. If I may.
Let's
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Let's hear from Ghada what she thinks about this, because we are at 2:30.
Okay, so let this be the 2 minutes video, and I invite you to answer questions, if any, on the chat.
All right.
And then we will have certainly meetings to share the experience with you, maybe other meetings with different parts from different countries. Thank you.
If I don't have time, I don't play it. That's it,
No,
but
play, please. Play.
All right,
please.
but just tell me if you can hear the sound only. Can you hear the sound? Can you hear the sound, Bilal?
Go ahead and play it, because we heard some music at the beginning. So let's see now. No. If Ghada can confirm.
You can hear?
No. I heard some music at the
Bilal,
beginning.
Can you hear? Can you hear, Bilal?
No.
Oh, you cannot hear the sound.
You have to share system audio before sharing.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know. I thought I did it. Thought I did it. Just 1 second. Let me repeat. Here we go. All right, now it should work. Just 1 second. Here we go. Now it's okay?
Yeah.
Open education resources, الموارد التعليمية المفتوحة, are teaching and learning materials that you may freely and openly use and reuse without charge.
With the launch of the UNESCO OER Chair for Lebanon and the MENA region, NDU joins the ranks of fewer than 10 other institutions worldwide with similarly appointed chairs.
The Faculty of Humanities embraced the university initiative in 2014 to bring OER on campus in order to use it for innovation and research.
The great thing about using OER in the classroom over the years, I've noticed that students have not only generated their own content along with the content that I have included, but they've been able to download things from the internet, and they interact with students in other parts of the world.
As of spring 2020, 17 courses across 6 departments have made use of the open education resources.
OER was very helpful and very interactive. We used it in sophomore rhetoric. We could easily find topics to debate on. We could easily find articles, find videos, and it was a good experience not using a book, because you can always forget your book, but you can never forget your cell phone, you can never forget your laptop. You can easily just access them and find whatever you want online.
The libraries are providing support for the OER initiatives at NDU by including OER resources in our multi-search. So when users search for library resources, they also find OER resources. By educating users about Creative Commons,
The advantages of open educational resources clearly outweigh the disadvantages. Whereas there's a lot of discussion about reducing student costs by providing access to digital material that is openly licensed and avoiding the high costs of printed traditional textbooks, students also encounter access to high quality material that is openly licensed and thus avoid copyright infringement. In addition, students are able to benefit from the latest knowledge in their field. It is
Okay, so I will stop here. You know, it's on YouTube, the video.
Please feel free to share the link with us in the chat. Absolutely.
I will share the presentation. Let me just open my video. So if there are any questions, here we go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Nice to see you.
Yeah. I did. Sorry, I didn't pay attention to turn my video on. Now I paid attention.
No
but
problem.
you know, one more thing, Bilal, before we quit. We have the policy at the national level now that we launch. It's in English and in Arabic. And we have I have created a production diagram and the flow, how to create OER. But, you know, I mean, this is something very important, you know, like I wanted them, you know, just 1 second, because it's very important for the presenter. This is the policy that we created. We have it in Arabic. And now this is the workflow. A production of open educational resources from starting, somebody want to create OER, what are the steps, yes, no, and then all the way to publishing OER. So now there is, and this can be customized to, depending on the institution, you can later on publish it on Moodle, you can publish it on your own digital repository. So now they have a map for them how to create OER. And of course, I created a quality guide, you know, how to evaluate an OER, which is customized to our context, you know, our culture. And this is, you know, it is in Arabic and in English, okay, the quality guide. So anyway, as I said, Bilal, dear colleagues, you know, I'm here, I'm available. I would love to share my experience with all of you. Thank you so much, Ghada, for giving me extension for my time. Thank you, Bilal. Thank you, everybody.
My pleasure. I'm really sorry for interrupting you at a certain moment, but I didn't want to get late on the subsequent sessions, and I wanted to open the space for discussion. But thank you anyway for insisting, because we got a look at this valuable material, and I think that everyone else, not only me, we are eager to have access to those files, especially the flow chart, actually, the workflow. Yeah. This is really nice, because this was my only single question, how to go from this top-down encouragement and support from like organizations such as Unesco to some operational implementation steps. And I think your diagram concludes and answered this question. I would really like to thank you and to thank Dr. Lilia and Dr. Haifa for those valuable talks. And I totally agree with you about how beautiful and heart-filling to see all these initiatives in all around our higher education institutions from all over the Arab world and in close collaboration worldwide. So thank you, thank you, and a big thanks to Ghada, who is organizing this festival of nice ideas and exchange.
Thank you.
The floor is yours, Ghada, to lend it to the next speakers.
Thank you, thank you. Well, on my turn, I thank you very much for having chaired the session. I did well putting breaks on the program, because we're just catching on the time without the breaks. But we haven't had any break actually from since this morning. But at least we're almost on time, so that's good. Thank you all, Dr. Fauzi. This was really, really inspirational, and what you have done at the national level, we would like to share with one day. Thank you for sharing with us OER Lab also. I will go and have a tour and have a look over there, and we will certainly contribute. I would ask you to do the same for OER Wiki at MENA, and this is an opportunity that lets us know about the initiatives of other colleagues.
Can I say one thing, Ghada, here?
Yes.
Just 1 second.
Please say.
Ghada, I know you before. I know we have excellent scholars. We have excellent educator in our region.
Yes.
What we need is the collaboration thing. We need to collaborate with each other, and we can do a lot. Really, this is what we miss, the collaboration and the sharing thing between each other. And I'm ready. I'm ready. I shared my email and everything, and I'm ready for any collaboration in the future.
Sure, Dr. Fauzi. I will also share. We have sent you from the conference mails before over BCC, but if you all allow us, the participant, let us share a list of contacts so that people here present would have the opportunity to collaborate. I thank you again